originally wanted to make a video talking about Waku Waku Puyo Dungeon, but I only really realized that once I was like 3/4 of the way done with the game, so I didn't record most footage that would have ended up being important. So this video is just going to be me rambling about a bunch of thoughts I have on the Puyo franchise in general and cannibalizing a bunch of talking points I could have padded out into multiple videos. Ban list. These are the things that are too easy to talk about or it's been talked about a million times, so I wouldn't really be showing off anything new. If you feel like you're missing context for any of these, just go to puyonexus.com and look up a bunch of stuff on the wiki there. Or just play the games. Either way, I guarantee you this video will have at least one fact that you probably already knew. Shezo being decapitated, Puyo Puyo 1's rule set being bad, Puyo Puyo 2 is fine, I just don't have anything original to say about it. Doppelganger Aurel's backstory, anything about Shinmaru, anything about Puyo Fever's voice acting. You can lick my fingers! Anything about Puyo Puyo Tetris, anything about Puyo Puyo Tetris 2. Alright, getting it out of the way now. Puyo Puyo is a puzzle game that I'm sure most people would compare to Tetris, and I can't blame them. You've got falling pieces in both, you can rotate your pieces in both, you make your pieces touch each other, you've got a big vertical board. Actually, now I'm wondering, why are these called puzzle games? When someone says puzzle, I feel like you'd first think of like jigsaw puzzles and escape rooms and such. And we've got a million video games nowadays where there are actual puzzles like that to solve. I guess back in the arcade heyday, puzzle was just a label that you could apply to any game that required any sort of planning. The genre has come so far today that Wikipedia has a category for falling block puzzle games that Puyo Puyo is in. Puyo Puyo has its own subcategory in this category, but Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine is its own thing in this category, and Kirby's Avalanche is relegated to the Puyo Puyo subcategory. What? Anyway, my point is I can see a bunch of kids getting together on the playground or at home and playing multiplayer Tetris. It's a pretty simple game to understand, you just put the blocks in the holes and try to clear as many lines as you can. Even if you get a piece you don't need, you can just put it to the side and it'll probably end up being useful later. But Puyo Puyo, as much as I'd love for it to happen, I can't really see a group of kids falling in love with Puyo Puyo at first sight and wanting to do 8-player DS download play every single day of their life. Puyo Puyo is more like Stockholm Syndrome where you have to buckle down and learn it in order to fully enjoy it. Even the main protagonist of Puyo Puyo Fever says she doesn't understand what's happening in the tutorial. Explaining the concept of a chain to a newbie is so much harder than just saying put the blocks in a horizontal line, and good luck trying to explain any kind of special rule set like Fever. I fully believe that 10-player Tetris DS matches have happened before, but an 8-player Puyo DS match has never ever happened in the history of humanity. Basically what I'm trying to say is that every school should have a learning Puyo class that everyone should be forced to take, and the class they can get rid of to make room for it is social studies. Or sex education. How do you play Puyo Puyo? I don't mean in the sense of the rules, you can just look up a YouTube video that'll tell you them. I mean in the sense of how do you do it? Whenever these guys make a big chain, they're clearly using their spells. But whenever they get hit, they're getting hit by the Puyo, not the magic spells the opponent fires off. So are the Puyo battles just like a representation of the actual magic fight? Well, they actually mentioned the game of Puyo Puyo several times in the actual game, so that can't be it. There's actually an official live-action Puyo Puyo play, and in it they just kind of point at the Puyo boards and waggle their fingers around to move the Puyo. So, mystery solved. They actually played the game of Puyo Puyo and just moved the Puyos using telekinesis or whatever. It doesn't seem like you can just pick these things up and move them either. They're fairly large. Sometimes. I guess the game is giving them magic power and they're just firing their spells off at ants or whatever instead of at each other. But that just raises another question. How does Rulu play Puyo? Her whole thing is that she can't use magic in a world full of it. Okay, so basically, I don't know. It's kind of funny how the Western localizations of the first 3 Puyo Puyo games each have some sort of change that makes them inferior to their Japanese versions. The original Puyo Puyo has its dialogue mostly rewritten, removing most of the humor and making the enemies more generic personality-wise. The part that shocks me the most is that even with all of the things they changed, the joke about Shezo's unfortunate choice of words remained. The only official localization of Puyo Puyo 2 is for the Neo Geo Pocket, a weaker console compared to the original Genesis and arcade versions. I don't inherently have a problem with versions on weaker consoles. Sometimes the handheld versions are arguably better than their home console versions, but this version is not one of those times. For some reason, there's no music during battles, and they also removed the little text blurbs about an opponent before you fight them. It's minor, yes, but it's enough to make it worse than every single Japanese version of the game. Yes, I know Puyo Puyo 2 got a Western release with the Sega Ages version, but I don't really count that one since the game ROM itself isn't actually localized, all the text is still in Japanese. As I was writing the script for this part, I remember that some Puyo games actually got versions for Java phones, but I was curious, did any of these actually release in the West? Yup, apparently so. Funnily enough, the Java version of Puyo Puyo 2 actually keeps both the music during battles and the little text blurbs before you fight an opponent. But the average device you're going to be playing it on looks like this. Not particularly intuitive controls unless you're playing on like an N gauge or something. Also, I checked to see if the original Puyo Puyo had a Western Java version, and the answer is kind of. The mobile Java game titled Puyo Puyo is actually a remake of the very first Puyo game, like the one before they put a focus on the multiplayer mode. I'm not going to count this one as the worst version of Puyo Puyo 1 because nobody really cares about it, nor is it the version people think of when you say Puyo Puyo 1. But the Puyo Puyo 1 people do care about did get a Japanese-only Java remake titled Puyo Puyo DX, with the Puyo Puyo 2 rule set and graphics from the Game Boy Advance Puyo Pop. So that's a neat piece of trivia. But yeah, I guess the worst version of Puyo Puyo 2 is a toss-up between a version with no music and a version you have to play on a phone. The third game, Puyo Puyo Sun, has what I believe is the longest localization wait for any Puyo game, not counting ones that haven't been localized yet. The first ever Japanese version of Puyo Puyo Sun released in December of 1996, and it took until October of 2022 for Versus Puyo Puyo Sun to release. And this release is still missing a bunch of content. The single player mode and its cutscenes are missing entirely, as well as the tournament mode some console versions have. I can't be too harsh on this version though. Unfortunately, there wasn't enough development time to demake the full game, so they were only able to port the Versus mode. Something of note though is that this version actually has 2 exclusive Versus modes. I won't go super in-depth into them since I haven't actually played either, but I will say that I'm a little sad the Fusion Sun mode is exclusive to this port alone, since I know a somewhat common complaint towards the game is that the Sun Puyo that fall on the board can occasionally be a hindrance instead of helpful. This release is a cool novelty though, since it's a 4th generation hardware version of what was originally a 5th generation hardware game. So Diamond's board background with a limited color palette is very pretty. Okay, now to actually say nice things about Puyo Puyo. It's only really dawned upon me recently, but I've come to realize the soft reboot, Puyo Pop Fever, was made with quite a bit of respect towards the original series. First and foremost, Arl and Carbuncle both appear and are playable. That's about as blatant as you can get towards respecting the original works. I like how in some of the Japanese box arts for the game, all of the characters are facing forward except for Arl and Carbuncle. It raises an air of intrigue around them, and it's a little treat for people who are fans of the original series before the reboot. There's also Puyo Puyo Fever 2 mentioning Awanimo, a spell that's used to pop Puyo, a spell that was first mentioned in the very first Puyo Puyo game. Some of the Fever characters are counterparts to the original Puyo Puyo characters as well. There's Arl and Amity, who are both young girls who strive to be powerful sorceresses. Some of their spells are strikingly similar to each other, or are just flat out the same. There's Rulu and Rafina, who both lack skill in magic and must rely on physical combat. They both act like dignified ladies as well. Shezo and Sig. Well, I'm not really confident on this one here. It's been made clear that they are the counterparts to one another, with the whole ARS trio thing going on and all, but I'm not really sure how they're similar outside of that. My best guess is that Sig being partially demon is supposed to parallel Shezo being a dark mage. Something that shocked me was that Rafina and Rulu don't interact in the first game they both show up in together, the game being Puyo Puyo 15th Anniversary. Amity and Arl directly interact. Shezo and Sig also directly interact. The closest thing Rafina and Rulu get to interacting is in Miss Accord's campaign, where Rafina only hears about Rulu through the grapevine. It took another 2 games for these two to directly interact with one another. There's also the pairs of Nohoho and Dangari Gaeru, as well as Nasu Grave and Onion Pixie, but I can excuse these pairs not really interacting much since they're secondary characters compared to the ARS trio. I just think it's cool that they have counterparts at all. Something that I've been thinking about for a while is how there doesn't seem to be a direct counterpart for Satan, the big antagonist of the original Puyo characters. Personally, I think it's Miss Accord and Papoy. Papoy is heavily implied multiple times to be more than just a puppet despite Accord's claims, and the first game he appears in literally has him calling himself the Dark Prince. His theme song also has the overly badass title of The Ultimate Legend of the Untrained Demon King. But also it's implied Papoy is probably just putting up an act here and he's actually not that powerful, so there might not even be a counterpart to Satan, so who knows. Accord is still a suspicious fella though. Also, this is tangentially related, but Liddell's whole character is that she's shy because she used to get bullied for having horns. Which makes it kind of hilarious that the manual tells you the ultimate strategy to defeat her is to bully her into staying in Fever mode. Anyway, this kind of thing is awesome. The Fever world got 2 games to establish itself and its characters, so when the big crossover with the original Puyo Puyo characters happened, there was a lot to work with when it came to character interactions. Now, what if we did that exact same thing without establishing any sort of world beforehand? Puyo Puyo 7 is the 8th Puyo Puyo game. Unlike Fever, which established itself with 14 original characters in its first game, this world only has 4 original characters. It's the ARS trio plus a Satan counterpart. Why did they soft reboot a second time? And it feels so half-hearted too, which makes me sad. There's not much to sink your teeth into in this kind of crossover when there wasn't any time to get to know the people of this world beforehand. This game's concept is, what if Puyo Puyo came to the real world? which is kind of interesting, but I just don't feel like it's as interesting as it could be because it feels like Arl is gripping my hand and cutting off my blood circulation while guiding me through a place I'd rather explore without her. Also, this world's character counterparts don't have anything in common with the others outside of their names start with ARS. The Puyo 7 world never really gets explored in future games either because anytime they're there they usually just leave and go to space or whatever. Halfway through this world's debut game, everyone just goes to the Fever world. What is even the point of making a brand new world if it's going to be abandoned halfway through? In short, kill all of the original Puyo and Fever characters and make a game where I can just walk through the Puyo 7 world and see what it has to offer. Thank you. Also, the school in this game has a giant Puyo pillar in front of it despite the fact that Puyo didn't exist in this world before this game's events. WTF. Okay, whatever, who cares about that? It's time to complain about something that actually matters. Have you noticed that they ruined Amity's design? In her original appearance, she's got a big afro Puyo hat with wings on it. In Puyo 7, her big hat got redesigned into a Puyo beanie with no wings. Now, if you're not insane, you probably don't care about this and just brush it off as whatever. But it actually removes a key design element that now makes her stand out like a sore thumb when put alongside all of the other Fever characters. All of the Fever characters that have some sort of relation to a school wear their school's emblem. Primptown's school emblem is a white wing, which every single Primp character still wears to this day. Rafina wears the emblem in her hair, and Sig has the emblem pinned to his bag. Lemurs and Frilly don't attend school in Primptown as they live in a different nearby town, so they wear a different emblem, a spikier yellow wing. So yeah, every student character from the Fever games wears an emblem that represents their school. Every student except for Amity. Her original giant afro cap has 2 wings on it, so she's totally fine in those games. But ever since Puyo 7 they are just completely gone. I can only assume she got expelled or something, so she's no longer allowed to wear them. I'm left wondering if the removal of these wings was an intentional design choice or if they just forgot. But the dedication to keeping the wings on every other Fever character's modern designs makes the latter implausible. Either way, this genuinely ruins her design for me. She looks naked. Fix it! Now! Something I've always thought was cool is how there's a little tradition hidden in each game's Fever mode. In Puyo Pop Fever, whenever you enter Fever mode, the music changes to a more upbeat one that has the following melody. Every future game's equivalent of a Fever mode, while having a unique Fever theme, actually has the original Fever leitmotif somewhere in them. Take a listen. Indeed, every Fever theme has that original leitmotif hidden in there somewhere. Every Fever theme except for these 3. Fever 2 not having it I can excuse since it was the first Puyo game to release after Fever and the tradition wasn't established yet, but by Puyo 7 it definitely was. It was the tradition upheld by one whole game beforehand. Yet another reason to hate Puyo 7. It's not like Puyo 7 is completely lacking in the leitmotif department though. While 7's Fever theme doesn't use the leitmotif for Puyo Pop Fever's Fever mode, it does incorporate said game's title screen theme. Puyo Puyo Puzzle Pop does incorporate a Fever theme, but it doesn't use Fever 1's, it uses part of Fever 2's. I guess a tradition with 100% accuracy would be each game released after Fever 1 incorporates a theme originating from the Puyo Pop Fever duology, but to me that's not as cool as just sticking to the original Fever 1's Fever theme. Although I should probably keep my mouth shut so I don't jinx it and have them end up breaking this tradition too. This was actually where I was going to end the video, but I stumbled across something intriguing right before I began to record audio. I was wondering if puyopuyo.com was currently an active domain, and to my surprise it was not. Someone currently owns the domain, but it doesn't actually lead to anything as of writing this video. I got curious and began to wonder if puyopuyo.com led to anything in the past. I mean, it had to, right? There's no way that puyopuyo.com has just been nothing for the past 30 years. I didn't look at every single phase the site went through, but the one that caught my eye the most was when it seemed to lead to something called Joy Nara. After seeing this, I, understandably, needed to know as much about this as possible immediately. By typing Joy Nara into Google and just adding before:2006, I found the Japanese business PDF that had the following to say about its creator company, KCT Media. It is a company with a track record of developing games, translation software, and other products for Japanese manufacturers, as well as providing personnel to Japanese information and communications technology companies. In this presentation, we will introduce Joy Nara, a cyber city serving as a new shopping portal site and content platform for the broadband era. As for current concrete developments in Japan, the localization of the service, translation into Japanese, is underway, and it has reached the stage where users can access the site from Japan and understand its content. End quote. Joy Nara's name comes from the combination of the English word joy and the Korean word nara, which means country or nation. I dug around on what remained of the Chinese and Japanese versions of the Joy Nara info sites, which had a few screenshots of what the game looked like. It seems like it was an MMO that allowed you to hang out with friends in movie theaters, arcades, and churches? Interestingly, it seems like the gender of your avatar in-game was determined by the resident registration number you had to provide in order to sign up. In layman's terms, it's like if you needed to provide your driver's license in order to play Roblox. Wait a minute. Looking further around the site, you can find mentions of Puyo Puyo 2 being one of the games provided by the service. This sounded plausible as an official release to me, as before Compile, the original holders of the Puyo IP, went bankrupt, they established a Korean branch. Back to the main page, clicking the big DA Games button takes you to a page where Puyo Puyo is front and center. The dedicated Puyo page in this website makes it pretty clear that, yep, this is just Puyo Puyo 2's battle mode. One of the tabs here is a leaderboard containing players' usernames and their win-loss ratio. Shout out to this 4th place legend representing one of the greatest Puyo characters of all time. Another tab downloaded a file called dagamepuyosetup.exe. Obviously, I did the same thing here and immediately ran this file without scanning it for viruses. The installer itself was in gibberish. I assume it's trying to load a language I don't have installed or something, but it did successfully install everything. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get puyo.exe to run for reasons I'll most likely never be able to know. I assume I needed to connect a DA game account or something. PuyoReplayer.exe opens fine, although there's not really much to see. I assume this was a tool for watching replays of your online Puyo battles. Opening Puyo.pack in a hex editor, I was able to find references to Toko. Toko is usually used to refer to the endless modes in Puyo games, so I guess this one had one too. Alright, that's everything I have to talk about for real this time. The moral of the story is that I'm a grown man and I just spent 20 minutes talking about a franchise about magic little girls.
誰かとやってるんですか？
だけさ。
私だけって言ったじゃない。私でしょ。ひどいひどいひどい。
でもね、一つのソフトで8人対戦できるから。
任天堂 DS でぷよぷよフィーバー。